Welcome to the Craftsman interview. We are recording in a very cool spot today. We're at the Cook Memorial Library Digital Studio. And just a plug for the library, which is a phenomenal place, but few people know about the new digital studio that is here that we're recording from. We've got podcasting, very high-tech microphones. They've got two very large Macintosh computers. They've got a keyboard. They've got a turntable that you can convert albums into MP3s, all kinds of different things here. So you could literally come down here and spend hours. So check it out. Welcome to the Craftsman interview. I'm here with Pete Garrity, who is a Libertyville resident and is running as a write-in candidate for the village board. And we are shooting from the Cook Memorial Library Media Lab. Right, George? The Media Lab. It's an awesome room. You got to check it out. So let's just go from here, start from the top, Pete. Can you give us a little bit of lay of the land as far as what's the situation? We've got 4 write-in candidates. Who's on, who's off, and what's the deal?
Sure. Well, the situation we have is that we have 6 trustees, and they roll through 4-year terms with 3 coming up for election every other year.
Okay.
So we're in the cycle where 3 are up. 2 of the candidates, the incumbents, have elected to run, trustees Johnson and Scott Adams, and one elected to drop off, which is Drew Cullum.
Okay.
And which created the opening. So back in December, when the petitions were submitted to officially run for the position and be on the ballot, Adams and Johnson submitted, and nobody else did.
Okay.
So on December 23rd, whatever, I think that was the cutoff, only 2 people were going to be on the ballot, or are on the ballot, for 3 positions. And it was at that point that, let me maybe take a little step back. Scott Adams and I have a very close relationship. We're good friends.
Okay.
Done things over the years. I've coached his son in youth basketball, and he's coached in soccer. So we've run around town forever. And
Sure.
I think most everybody knows Scott Adams is he's got the deep roots in Libertyville, and he and I had talked about getting involved in the village and village government. And Scott was appointed to fill a position when Jim Moran had to step down last year. And my commitment to Scott was that I'll back you, I'll help you get your signatures, which I did, petitions and things like that. And I said, hey, let's get Scott Adams reelected, and then let's kind of bring Pete along in that environment. And I kind of had him back in my mind, if everything went well, I'd be running in 2 years.
Okay.
So, but as it came down, nobody else is running. And so Scott and I had a dialogue or two. Actually had a conversation with Walt Oakley also.
Okay.
Church one day, and said, nobody's running. What's going on? And Walt said, well, looking for somebody good, Pete. You thinking about it? And I said, Walt, I
That's
am.
Walt.
I am. And he kind of set back. So that kind of started the whole thing. So I talked to Scott. Said, all right, I'm interested.
Okay.
Of course, before I did any of that, I talked to my wife, Pat. Married for 42 years, so we've been through a lot of things together, and this is clearly a team effort. So talked to Pat, said, what do you think? And so we talked about it a bit, because it's a big commitment. It's a 4-year commitment. You've got meetings, budget meetings. There's a lot to this role, and you don't want to take it lightly. So we didn't, and agreed that this sounded good. So I talked to Scott, so we sat down with Terry Wepler. I asked for a meeting with Terry, and I know Terry not real well, but I see him around town. I mean, I'm at the same events he's at, because I'm pretty active in town.
Sure.
And attending events. And so I knew Terry from that. So we sat down with Terry and went through in depth my background, talked about my experience, and he said, Pete, I think you'd be a good candidate for the position, and in fact, I think you'd be good to be on the board as a trustee. So it was on that basis that I felt going forward, it makes a lot of sense. So But what I also wanted to do as part of that process was meet some of the other leaders in the village. So I set up some meetings and sat down with some previous mayors. I sat down with Dwayne Laska.
Sure.
And talked to Dwayne, talked about the role, and talked about my background. He encouraged me and endorsed me to run. I also sat down with Jeff Harger, another previous mayor.
Yeah, okay.
Sat down with Jeff. So Jeff, what do you think? And Jeff said, I think you'd be a great person to have on the board. So with that, I filed papers, which I'm sure you're aware you have to do that with the county to become an official write-in candidate, which is what I've done. And I'm running for the position. So as kind of going down through that, the role of the trustee as it is, it's really you're balancing the needs of the residents and the needs of the village. So you've got to kind of keep those in balance. As a trustee, you've got to listen to the constituents, understand the issues as they come up. But then you've got the needs of the whole. You've got the needs of the village. So you've got to balance those two as you go forward. I look at it. My background's in business, and I look at it somewhat as being in similar some ways to a board of directors of a corporation, where you're not involved in the day-to-day business, and if you are, you're in trouble. You want to be up there, but you want to be oversight, making decisions, and providing input for the direction of the corporation. And I see trustees to be somewhat in that kind of a role. We have a great team running the village. Kevin Bowens and his staff does just a tremendous job. Worked with Kevin on some projects and things, and his staff has been very, very helpful. So there's a really good crew running the village. I say, we don't want to get in their way, but we do want to provide oversight and provide some direction to them. So that's kind of how that's a long answer to a question, but that's
great. That's great.
That's kind of how I see
Thank you for that.
Sure.
Tell us a little bit about professionally your background and what qualifies you for that. You talked a little bit about being a business guy. What have you done?
Sure. Well, let me just go back just a little bit. Raised in Waukegan.
Sure.
Waukegan guy. Waukegan High School. Married my high school sweetheart. Like I said, Pat and I have been married for 42 years. Went to Northern Illinois University for college. Got an undergrad degree in marketing. Worked for a while and went to school at night. Got my MBA while I was working and juggling everything. So
Sure.
That was it was quite a task to get through. But anyway, got through and. I've gotten the corporate world and have held what I guess you would call increasingly responsible positions throughout my career. So I had a 40-year business career working for Fortune 1000 companies, P&G, SPX, IMC. I put in my last 19 years with Snap-on. So,
oh wow! Okay.
Now Snap-on's corporate office is up in Kenosha. I worked out of an office Kenosha, Crystal Lake. And then down outside of Little Rock, Arkansas, where one of our offices is. So I kind of bounced between those three locations, and I was the national service director for our equipment division.
Okay.
And just in terms of stats, I was responsible for a $50 million P&L. We had 400 associates, management team, that type of thing. So it's big business within a large corporation. So a lot of responsibility. So I feel that business background that I have between my education and my experience plays pretty strongly in terms of what I bring to the party from that standpoint. I've also been involved earlier on when I was. Our first house was in Waukegan. We moved to Waukegan after we got married and came back to the area. I was very much involved in Waukegan. A lot of needs there, more needs today than there were back then even. But I was part of the JCs, president of the local JC chapter, Waukegan, North Chicago JCs, did a lot of community events, got involved with the JCs at the state level, ran some state events, ran around the state and promoted some things. Was elected JCI senator, so represented the JCs at the Senate level. So got very deeply involved in that. As the corporate career moved on, travel became more extensive. And as a result of the travel, something's got to give. So I certainly that work-life balance, is part of the equation. So I had to kind of give up some of the community activities to focus on career and family.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of where we
Sure.
put my time. Now, I did. I found time. I mean, everybody in Libertyville does something with GLSA. So I coached in GLSA, kids in soccer, did those kind of things. Little League baseball. Helped out there. Youth basketball. Coached youth basketball. So I tried to stay involved in the community. But in terms of taking on a major role, I just didn't have the time because I was gone all the time, and just it's too much travel. But that I guess kind of defined how things went there. As I was easing in towards retirement a couple years ago, I was looking at what do I want to do when I retire. Although I like to play golf, I'm not very good at it, and I wouldn't want
There's two of us.
Yeah, certainly wouldn't want to do that on a regular basis. But I knew I wanted to give back in a couple different ways.
Sure.
The university's been very good to me. NIU, my education there is really what helped propel me into the corporate world. So what I've done is I got involved with NIU. I was asked to serve on the alumni board of directors. And I was selected out of a large pool of candidates to serve on the alumni board. I've got involved with the university, working with actually the president on some Bold Futures initiatives and some other things there. Part of a mentor program, so doing quite a bit at NIU. So I've kind of got that going. Community, want to do something here, and that's where Scott and I talked about getting involved in some things here at the community level. So I think I've got a pretty good balance. Well, I've been in the community for 33 years, so I know we've been in the same house. We chose to stay here. Some people elect to move, leave, go, whatever.
Sure.
We're committed to stay here. In fact, our kids want to move back. One of these days. So we love the town. It's a great town, and we've got roots here, and we're going to stay here. So I've got the business acumen, involvement in the community, and deep roots. So I think all that fills the role in terms of why I would be appropriate as a trustee.
Makes sense.
On the board.
Tell me a little bit about your feelings on, it doesn't seem to me that anything is really broken. I think things are going pretty good by and large in the village. But where is the village board? What do you think the strengths are? And then conversely, where do you think some of the opportunities or weaknesses are as it relates to the board?
Sure. Again, I've gotten to know I have gotten to know the board members, pretty well. Some better than others, obviously. But it's to me, we've got a good board. It's a nice blend of a couple trustees that work in the community. And then we've got some people so you've got small business in the community. You've got banking in terms of Trustee Morris and Trustee Adams. Are in the financial side of the business. So they've got that side working. Donnie Johnson's an attorney at Allstate. So there's a nice blend there, and I think my fit would be business. I've got the business, the corporate background, service, working with customers, and I think that's the business discipline that I can bring. And not that, as you say, not that things are going badly, but I think it never hurts to get maybe a bit more of a rigid looking at some things, working look at the bottom line, look at the return on investment, some of those kind of things. Yep. Not that they're not happening, but I think that type of a input needs to be provided at times to the village. So I think that's probably where I would come in. And the other thing I like about the board is that we read all these horror stories about communities in the county and the state where the boards are at each other's throats, they're yelling and screaming, and people are having eggs thrown at them. I mean, that's not how Libertyville does business, and that I don't see Libertyville ever doing business that way, which is great. Yep. Wepler does a good job running the village. You've got a great board in there, and they get along, they cooperate, and not that everybody agrees. I mean, certainly you can't have agreement, and I certainly won't be in agreement with things at times, and that's the way it should be. You should have open debate, open dialogue, get the issues on top of the table. And that's what I think that the board does. They vet the issues. We have some great committees that filter the issues, work through some things, whether it's ZBA or streets or whatever. They all work the issues and then bring them to the board at an appropriate time, and then let the board take action at that point. In terms of weaknesses or whatever, I would have a hard time saying that there's any glaring weaknesses or glaring problems. I think what we do need to be conscious of is kind of that complacency creep, where things are going good, things are going well. You've constantly got to be looking, analyzing, looking at the numbers. Anybody in business, sees where over time, a couple bucks here, a couple bucks there, things just kind of start moving along. They get baked into the annual plan, and the next thing you know, you're spending more than you should be. So I think, I'm not saying that that's the case. It's certainly not the case in the majority, but I think that's something that we just need to keep a close eye on, and then just continue to work with the current team that's running the village, and we've got to be aware of what's going to happen as we get into retirement and succession planning, because there's some very, very good people that have got a lot of tenure, and succession planning, I think, is going to be an issue that's going to be coming along. So there's just a couple things.
It's kind of a segue to two more questions for you. One is, as a resident, what should I be thinking about? I'm busy working and doing my thing, raising my 3 girls with my wife, and everything seems to be going pretty well, knock on wood. But as you look out, we're the beneficiary. The way I look at it is, I'm the beneficiary. My family, my fellow residents are the beneficiary of a lot of the vision that leaders before the current leadership really laid out. And as well as Main Street, frankly, the Main Street organization, they really struck a vision. So what, as a resident, should I be thinking about for 10 years down the road? Are there any big issues that are coming around the pike that we may not be aware of?
Well, if I knew that, I might be gambling in Vegas or something, But what I would say is that clearly we've got a broken state. Springfield, the issues going on down there are not good, and there's a lot of things that are going to happen. I mean, we've seen that where Governor Rauner proposed to cut our cut of the tax by 50%. That's $1 million. It's a significant amount of money, to say the least. So I think we have to be very aware of what's happening in Springfield. How are we going to fix the state while we here in Libertyville continue to grow, prosper, and keep moving the ball down the field, as you would say in a sports analogy. I think as residents, it's important to stay as involved as you can, try to stay aware of the issues, and obviously vote in every election. Try to vote intelligently. Try to understand who the candidates are and what they bring to the table, and try to do that. I mean the issues that Libertyville has, are fairly well known. Parking, we've got to get parking addressed, but at the same time, we've got to continue to maintain the vibrancy that we have downtown. So as a resident, part of that is shop local. That's the old 60048 Main Street promotion that we have going. So I think it's a matter of being involved in the town. And the other thing that's amazing about Libertyville is it's very strongly volunteer oriented. When you look at Main Street and the success that Main Street's has, I went to Main Street's annual meeting, and as I've done before, and I've sat down with Pam Hume, and I've talked about Main Street and the fact that I'm a strong supporter of Main Street and everything that Main Street is done. But they talk about man hours, I should say people hours, that have been contributed to Main Street, and it's thousands of hours. I think the number was 5,134 or something like that. But it was a tremendous amount of hours and time that people have put in. Whether it's lunch in the park on Fridays, or it's Cars on 21, or it's Let's Find About Winter, all those kind of things. Right. It's just amazing, how much the residents of the village contribute. And I would just ask that residents, continue to keep that in mind. Main Street is a nonprofit organization. It does receive a small subsidy from the village, but it continues to need funds and resources that the residents can bring. If it's not money, it's time. So I think that Main Street's a bit of the fabric of the community, particularly as it relates to downtown. We've got to look at the rest of the village too. We've got our sports complex, up in the north end of town. Great facility, but it just, unfortunately, it's not paying for the debt. So we've got to address that and either pay down the debt as rapidly as we can, or sell the facility. And it's on the market. So hopefully we can get through that and kind of take that load off of the village that we're going with, and and kind of move ahead. And then beyond that, we've got 137. We need to do some things up on 137 to help that business corridor that got beat up badly with the road closures and the things up at 21 and 137. So we've got to help those folks out there, and ideally, spread the load out. I think we're. If we can buy cars in town, that's good. It's it's a win for the village. We get our sales tax. Miles of cars it's just been a tremendous asset to the village.
No doubt.
The board just passed a program where there's going to be some rebates and some things going. So it's a joint program between the village and the car dealerships to help them continue to thrive and grow. It was a beautiful thing last year. We came in with we were $1 million ahead of the revenue that we had expected to come in. So we had basically an extra $1 million. Now, I guess that's the good news. The bad news is it's seemingly being offset by the amount of money that Springfield has taken away from us. But that's the environment we're in. We're moving forward. We're doing a lot of good things here and taking care of the residents like you and I. And and my position is let's continue to build on what we have and keep moving forward.
Got it. Well, thanks so much. Where can people find out more about you? Do you have a website or anything, Pete?
I'm on Facebook.
Okay.
You can find me on Facebook. Also, email address is pgarrity@sbcglobal.net.
Okay.
I'm in the phone book. I have no
right.
problem. What I would say is that I think people around town should be able to find me. I'm there on First Fridays. I was there at Let's Wine About Winter. I'm going to be at Misericordia, with Finn's on Friday. So I'm around town. So now that you kind of got the face and the name here together, I have no problem approaching me and talking about things.
Well, I appreciate that, man. Thanks so much for coming in. It's great to meet you.
Very good.
And I appreciate your time.
Good to meet you
Thanks.
too.